It is with my great pleasure to introduce Steve Benson, the childhood coach of the 2021 England Player of the Year and 2021 Six Nations Player of the Championship, Poppy Cleall. Thank you very much for your time. I'm really excited to get your insight as a coach on women's rugby and just Poppy playing as a professional, really, from a little girl. So if we start from the beginning at Ellingham and Ringwood, which was also my club for a couple of years, where did your journey into rugby coaching begin, and how did this lead into girls and eventually women's rugby?
Okay, well, I started playing rugby for the club, and I was also refereeing at the time as well. But I really got involved in coaching when my own two children, Henry and Charlotte, started playing. And Henry's the oldest. I started coaching him in the boys' teams, and then when Charlotte's was no longer able to play in the mixed teams with the boys, that's when I set up a girls set up at Ellingham and Ringwood. So that was when I first got involved with girls rugby, and first got involved with coaching Poppy.
Was the girls' team your idea? Was it purely out of Charlotte didn't have anywhere to play, so you thought, well, I'll make a team?
Pretty well. That was it. Yes, not just Charlotte. We had a group of girls that were playing in the mixed rugby with the boys at that point, and they were really loved playing their rugby. Really enjoyed it, and they were all really good. And they wanted to carry on playing. And there were some other teams around, not particularly local to us. So we just got things going, and then it went from there. Really.
Yeah. So would you agree for young girls trying to find a rugby club to join,
that
they were fairly few and far between for just young girls who wanted to play a bit of club rugby?
There was very, very little in the way of girls rugby at that stage. There were just a few clubs around the country that had setups. Yes.
Yeah. So how did Poppy come into this? When did she enter the picture?
Well, I first came across Poppy when she was playing for our under-10s team, which would have been a mixed team with the boys. And her and her twin sister Bryony came to the club. They moved down from Norwich and wanted to play rugby. I got a phone call from their mum, and we were very glad to have them. We were a bit short in that age group in any case, and they came down. Not only were two new players, but they were two of the best players that we had in the team. They were superb.
And that was still mixed at the time, was it?
That was very, very much mixed. They were the only two girls in that boys team, and I think my Charlotte's a couple of years younger, and there were a couple of girls in the year in between. So yes, there was a group of girls that were all sort of coming through, playing rugby, enjoying it, but no pathway beyond that for them at that stage.
Yeah. So you were quite an instrument in making a pathway when there wasn't one, really, because you quite literally created a team for Ellingham and Ringwood.
I suppose so. In hindsight, there were you look around, and there were probably three clubs in Hampshire at that point that were running sides. That was Havant and Petersfield. And so we made the third, and but actually we had to travel a lot further than that for our games. We were forever going up into Surrey and into Kent and Hertfordshire and down into the southwest. So a lot of travelling to get the games in.
I remember them, actually. I do remember. As young girls, was it different? Teaching, was their approach different as athletes? I know very, very young athletes, but I'm sure there are differences between teaching young boys and sort of how they latch onto the game.
Yeah, I mean, when I was coaching in the mixed age groups, we treated the boys and the girls pretty well all the same. And in fact, nearly all of the girls that we had playing for us at that time were some of the best players in the teams. And I know I've heard of other people that where the boys wouldn't pass to the girls or the girls wouldn't pass to the boys. We'd never particularly experienced that. And
I had that where I played for a little bit when I was really young.
Yes.
I used to like storm up to my coach and be like, why are they not passing to me?
But there was probably a little bit of that. Not that I was sort of particularly conscious of so much as a coach, but I think the real difference for me when we were coaching them as a girls' team rather than as a boys' team, I actually found coaching girls far more satisfying, and I found the girls were very much keener to learn. They didn't think that they knew it all, and especially as some of the junior boys, as they get a little bit older, they tend to sort of think they know more than the coaches or players that have played for a long time. But the girls were really like sponges in terms of wanting to take in the knowledge and to get the learning. And yeah, I certainly found it easier in some ways to coach, and certainly more rewarding. You saw the development come very much quicker. But I think the other area that we had with from having a few girls that were playing in the boys teams to having full sides of girls, we had to do a lot of recruitment in the schools. So we were recruiting players who were really good at other sports and were good athletes, but were completely new to rugby. And then we were coaching those with girls who played rugby since they were 6 or 7 years old and were really, really good at the sport. And that's the bit I think was most challenging, trying to come up with sessions that were rewarding and stretching for your experienced players, but weren't too challenging for the people that were joining for the first time, and that were being able to develop them. And actually very difficult doing that on your own, which I was doing to start with. And very quickly you realize you had to build up sort of coaching teams so that you could sort of break that down and take players off into smaller groups to develop them as appropriate.
Yeah, when you split off into the backs and the forwards, and you start to train your specific parts, your role in the team, you do need multiple coaches to take groups off, and even scrum half, if they've got a kick technique that they need to perfect, then that takes a coach at least. And I remember when I came to Ellingham and Ringwood, it really shocked me the amount of coaches that were available to cater to all the different parts and like the skills that specific woman wanted to practice. Because where I started, which wasn't Ellingham and Ringwood, it was another place in Hampshire, it was hard enough filling a whole squad. We didn't even have subs, so if you were injured, the game stopped or you played on. Because so how long did it take from creating the girls team for your daughter mainly to really having a full-fledged rugby squad plus subs plus the coaches to nurture it, I guess?
Yeah, I suppose we did it within a year or two to sort of get to a position where we were sort of sustainable and could put out full sides. But it was always a job that was never done because you were always looking to sort of recruit and strengthen. And I'm sure you will remember, I mean, it's still the case today, but less so today. But in a boys' team, you tended to play just in your own school year. But the girls, for example, the under-18s girls at that time would have been a group of under-18s, 17s and 16s all playing together. So, as one group of 18s moved up into the women's game at the end of a season, you had to be sort of recruiting the next girls that were coming into that team, and the same in the next age group down and the next age group down. So we did an awful lot in school development work in sort of getting rugby accepted in the schools as something that people would that girls would want to play, and that schools would see as the norm on part of their curriculum. And actually that was quite hard work to get that in some schools. Some schools were very open to it, but some schools that actually no, our only girls offer is netball or hockey or whatever that it was for their particular school.
It's so funny you say that, because the last girl I interviewed, her name's Emily Blake, and she plays varsity rugby now for Oxford University.
Yeah.
She played at Twickenham recently, and we're from the same hometown, and I had no idea that she played. And I saw all this stuff on Facebook that she was playing, and I gave her a quick message, and I just wanted to compare experiences, really, because I never got higher than county. So, I thought, well, what's your experience going even higher? And she had exactly the same thing. Her school never offered it to her. She went to an all-girls school. And we both just kind of sat with each other and thought, why? Like, it's almost a given with the boys and their curriculum, and it's what they want to do. And I had my own experiences with my PE department. They were very unwilling to be flexible on what the girls could do. But yeah, can you suggest, or did you have any idea? I mean, I guess that's quite frustrating. Why a school would reject it if girls want it and the rugby's there? Why would you not want to provide that?
Well, we've just something we've worked really hard at, and we actually we pay somebody to do school development work. I mean, I started doing a bit of school development work, but I've got a demanding day job, and so for me to be able to get into a school at the times that they want you, normally sort of after school clubs, I could do a bit of it, but it was never really sustainable. So we have a paid sort of school development officer who, and actually a lot of his focus is on girls rugby. So we've got a lot of the schools around the New Forest now that are offering girls rugby, and we're the sort of the hub. In the new, there's probably 6 rugby clubs in the New Forest, but we're the one that runs girls rugby. And so, whether you're in Lymington or New Milton or Fordingbridge or whatever, you come to the club in Ringwood, because that's where the girls offer is. I think, looking forward, it would be great if sort of each of those clubs had their own girls sections, and then it would be much better for the girls. And but I think that's still a few years down the road. Although I have to say, there's probably I said there were probably 3 girls teams playing rugby sort of 15, 20 years ago. There's probably double that now, I would think. So so not huge number, but there's probably a good half a dozen clubs that are playing, which is good to see, and it makes the travelling distances much less for the girls, which is great.
And more competition, I guess, because I remember playing the same teams a lot, and sometimes even like swapping players in and out, like, because if the game got not too familiar, but I think coaches just wanted to, I don't know, improve skills and see what they could get from other clubs. But it's pretty unheard of with the men's, really.
Yeah, I mean, I there's a story I tell that very regularly we were a bit too strong for some of the other teams that we were playing. I think I mentioned when we were talking the other day that from that team that we had, we've got 4 of those players are playing in the or played in the Six Nations last year. So we were pretty strong. So we would start the game with our team, and then I would always give the opposition our best players. So Poppy would regularly be playing against our girls, which would strengthen the opposition that we were playing a bit. But actually, it would be really developmental to our girls as well, because they would be playing up against someone of her calibre. And but of course, there were 2 of them with the twins, with Poppy and Bridie. So I always had sort of Poppy and Bridie playing against each other, which that they were both incredibly competitive. So that became quite a challenge. But Pete, their dad, was always, he's very competitive as well. What are you doing them? You're giving them our best player. We shouldn't be doing that. But I always took the view that that's the way that they were going to learn, and that's the way that people were going to get better games and better experiences of the sport.
I think it's a universal experience then, because I remember being swapped in and out quite a couple of times, and I think, oh, please don't pick me. I don't want to play for the other team. I don't want to play for the other team. Focusing on Poppy as an individual, I know that her job before going into rugby full-time professionally, she was a prison guard. Do you know how long she was doing that and juggling both, or was it a situation where she just had to stop working altogether?
She was a prison officer for
Officer,
a number
sorry.
of years, and playing rugby for various different clubs. I think she was down in. She'd got a prison job down in Bristol and was playing for Bristol for a while, and then they got on a professional contract. So she actually sort of gave up the prison officer work and became a professional on an England contract. But then there was a period where the contract stopped. So she actually had to go back into the job that she was doing before, and then the contracts came back on again. So it's been a bit sort of stop start, and I don't think that would happen again. I think sort of women's rugby is properly professionalised now in this country, and I think increasingly the other countries are also doing that. But it was a challenge. But yeah, when I was playing rugby back in the 70s, there would be people playing for England on a Saturday, and back at work. This is in the men's game. We'd be back at work on Monday, working as an accountant or a bricklayer or whatever. And that was an amateur area of the men's game, and that wasn't that long ago, really. The professionalisation of sport generally, let alone women's sport, is relatively new.
And Poppy as a player, just as an athlete on her own, from childhood to watching her on TV now, what are her qualities as a player and as her coach that you really saw something that was great? I know you said she was obviously very competitive, as all athletes have to be. But was there that spark that you saw that maybe other players didn't have at her age?
She always had a great skill set and worked, sort of very hard. Her passing was always good off both hands, and for a forward, that's less common than it would be for a back. So her skill sets were always there. She's always been a fairly physically powerful player as well, but there is that competitiveness. But one of the issues with Poppy and with her sister, actually, in a training session, they would get bored very quickly, and if you were just doing drills or something like that, they would get very, very bored, and they always needed competition in everything that they were doing. So the trick was always to make something into some sort of game situation where there was a competitive edge, and the minute there was some competition, they would come alive. If it was just tuning skills, then they would get very bored very, very, very quickly, and that's probably true of most players because we're all competitive, but it was especially true with the two of them.
I don't know if you've seen in the media recently anything about Lucy Bronze. She's a footballer who's just been signed to Barcelona. And basically, she spoke to her coaching staff. I think the other day we spoke about the lack of variety in women's sports boots, and apparently this is true in football as well. I just saw it and I wanted to get your opinion on it. So she told her coaching staff that her boots were too small and they were crushing her toes in the games and training and whatever she was doing in them. And from her coaches, they told her to stop complaining. And I just wanted your opinion as a coach. Like, why would a coach ever say that if you wanted the best for the athlete that you're training? And do you believe it's a problem with gender, or is that just bad coaching?
I think you're always looking to get the best out of your players. So, if there was something that wasn't quite right, you'd be looking to put it right. Probably a good one to be talking to Poppy about herself, because she's done a lot of work challenging the big sports companies, and in particular Nike, on both the way they market women's sports clothes, because they often use male models rather than female models. And she's saying actually we need female role models for these things. But actually, you're right on things like boots. Often the shape of a woman's foot is different to a man's foot, or the shape of the cut of a shirt is different, or the cut of a pair of shorts is different. And it was a matter of back in the day, sort of the women were wearing sort of small men's kit and often second-hand men's kit that was sort of passed down.
Old
But
bits,
actually
old
that
kit.
has changed, fortunately, and there are some very good kits. But yeah, Poppy has really called out Nike on this, and in fairness, Nike have responded, and they are using female role models. They are producing products now which are designed for the female sports. But I think I read somewhere that women's rugby is the fastest growing sport, or certainly the fastest growing female sport in the world at the moment. So if you're in marketing for a sports company, you would want to be aligning yourself with the fastest growing sport, because there's a market there and you can sell things to people. So they would be very silly not to listen to that sort of feedback.
Yeah, and I suppose it hasn't come without people like Poppy calling the big companies out, and like people like yourself making the teams, because I said this in with the previous interview, the hunger for it is there. It's just creating the opportunities. Lastly, a personal question. Obviously, you coached Poppy for 11 years in her youth, and now watching her play for England, like, what's that like for you as a coach? It's got to be quite a proud moment because you helped that athlete, in their beginning.
It's funny. I mean, I absolutely, love seeing Poppy and her sister and Lisa and Donna, who all played in the Six Nations last year, seeing them develop at the highest level. But I also get tremendous satisfaction out of there's a group of women playing in our women's team at Ellingham who also came through that same system. So and they're still playing and they're still enjoying their sport. At national challenge level. And I get equal satisfaction out of both of them. But you're right. There's something sort of special when somebody goes on and represents their country. And certainly, I'm very friendly with Poppy's PE teacher, and he and I and our wives are going out to watch the girls in the Rugby World Cup in New Zealand later this year. So we're going out there for a month, and hopefully we'll watch them be successful in that. But it will be sort of special being able to see that. But I mean, what I would say about Poppy and the other three as well is what they give back to the club as well. That we've got our girls' presentation tomorrow, and I think it's Bryony who's coming down for that. But all of them, come down and give things back to the club. They've given us shirts which are up on the wall. They present the trophies at events. They've turned up at school development days, and I remember. She wasn't entirely happy with it, but Poppy bought a World Cup runners-up medal that last time, a silver one. She really wanted a gold one, but she brought that to the club, and it was a special moment for the girls. Yeah, she really desperately wanted a winner's medal rather than a runners-up medal. But hopefully she might be able to bring a winner's medal back from New Zealand later in the year and do that. But it is, that they are great role models, and and it really does make an impact on people locally playing rugby. The fact that someone who went to a local school, played for a local club, can be seen to go on and achieve that. It's inspirational for the youngsters that are starting today.
I was just about to say exactly that the impact it has on the club that they have left behind in order to progress is huge, because you think, well, if she can go from what was a tiny club in Ringwood to go to play for the Six Nations and do so well, not even like when I was researching all of her titles, everything she's done, I was thinking, how do I say all of this and take a breath? Like, she's just achieved so much. It's super inspiring, and I think Ellingham and Ringwood have done such a fantastic job, and you being part of that in creating rugby for girls. And we all owe you a massive thank you, because it wouldn't have happened without you. So yeah, thank you for that.
Not a problem. And most importantly, it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun for the players. It's been a lot of fun for me along the way. And that's the most important thing with any sport, isn't it?